in Manchester, England. Dillian Whyte versus a guy you know very well, Alexander Povetkin, who you've trained in the past. And I'd just like to get your thoughts on that one. Povetkin obviously been around a long time. Dillian Whyte's a guy that we've been high on this show for a long time now. What do you think here? What should we be looking for from both guys?
Well, first of all, Povetkin, you're right. We won a world title together. We won the heavyweight title together when I was training Povetkin for 2 years. So he's a former world champion and also a former Olympic champion, gold medalist from Russia, representing Russia. Dillian Whyte against Alexander Povetkin. Interesting, for me, the way I would label it, interesting crossroads fight, or possibly the end of the road fight, for especially Povetkin. He's 40 years old now. So and it's a crossroads fight for Dillian Whyte because this is it. The funny thing about Dillian Whyte, he was the mandatory challenger for about 28 years, right? It was right, for about 25 years, for 10 years, 15 years, for a long time. I mean, the absurdity of boxing in these organizations. But they had him, and we defended him. We defended him because we defend people that we think need to be defended. We attack people we think need to be attacked. We point fingers and we put lights on people we think should have fingers pointed and lights shined on them. Yeah, that's what we do. But we defended Whyte because he wasn't being treated right. He was the mandatory for way too long, and they never gave him his title shot. So now here he is. Now he has it. It's supposed to be his time. That's the first thing I say in evaluating, handicapping this fight for the people out there. It's supposed to be his time. And he's 9 years younger. I just said Povetkin, he's 31, Povetkin is 40. The race is supposed to go to the swift and to the young. I don't know if either one of these guys are real swift, but Whyte is younger. So it's supposed to be his time. But it's interesting. Povetkin, he keeps making these paydays, Ken. You got to say one thing about his people. They keep getting him these paydays. And he's been active, especially at 40 years of age. I made a note to myself to make sure that I'm accurate and I remember these things. But him and his people know there's very little time, if any, left, right? And knowing that, it kind of coincides with what they're doing. This is his third fight in 9 months. That's a lot for heavyweights nowadays. It really is, especially a 40-year-old one. As I said, Whyte's 9 years younger. He could be up and down with his weight sometimes, a little bit concerning because that can affect his performance. You would think that he's going to be prime and ready for this opportunity. Finally, he's getting it. You would think so. He's a strong, aggressive fighter, good body puncher, Dillian Whyte. I like him. I told you I liked him a while ago on the show. He's beaten some good fighters. As I said, he was a mandatory challenger forever. And again, now here he is. Here he is. It's supposed to be his moment. It is his moment. What will he make of it? That's what it's going to be all about. Very interesting. For me, the younger Whyte needs to keep the pace. He needs to keep it fast and not allow the older Povetkin to get into a comfort zone where he's able to, survive early rounds, because of a slow pace and not really be pushed. And because then he can make a run for the finish line later. If Povetkin at 40 can keep it at a slower pace, a more controlled pace, then when it gets, into those deeper rounds, again, he can make a make a dash. He can make it to the finish line. Yeah. And it's up to the younger Whyte, I think, to keep it at a faster pace that obviously is advantageous to him and disadvantage to Povetkin. Kind of like a car on the road. You got an older car. You don't want it going 70 miles an hour. You want to stay in that lane that goes 40. And that's what Povetkin, I think, wants. Stay in that lane for the first, 8 rounds if you can. 40 miles an hour. Every once in a while, go up to 50. Get back to 40 if you can get away with that. You don't want to be on the Autobahn. Not with an old car. You don't want to be on the Autobahn. And so I think this fight's up to Whyte. I don't say that all the time. I think it's in his hands. I really do. I think it's more in his hands that Dillian Whyte fights the appropriate fight with the appropriate tenacity. Also, as he's being aggressive, go to that old body. He's a pretty good body puncher, Dillian Whyte. Go to that older body. Wear that older body down. Take some of the air out of the tires for later in the fight. And do it while you're not running into right hands. that is something you have to be aware of, You don't want to be running into right hands because Povetkin's a good puncher. He delivers usually with that right hand. He's got a left hook too, but he's got a pretty good, tricky right hand that I remember showing it to him in the gym when I started taking over his training and before we fought for the world title. I told him that act as though you're going to your left, like you're slipping over here, and then, boom, just at the last second, loop the right hand a little bit. Just a slight loop, but get the guy's eyes to follow your head to the left just to get the opening for that right hand where he gets distracted with your head moving, boom, and then the punch has an opportunity to be really effective. He does that pretty well. He learned it, and he stayed with it because it worked for him. And that's something that I think Whyte's got to be aware of. One of the storm clouds, because when we're handicapping a fight, we're forecasting something. And if you were forecasting the weather, if we were weathermen, one of the things that could be a possible storm cloud, I made a note to myself, they have a common opponent. Marius Wach. And Whyte beat him by decision, and Povetkin knocked him out. Now, look, styles make fights. That doesn't necessarily mean diddly squat. But it does mean maybe Povetkin punches a little harder for one shot. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe he just caught him right.